Hello, tile friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Tile Money Podcast. My name is Luke Miller, your host, tile contractor, owner of Tile Solutions out of Sarasota, Florida. I'm excited to be here today. It's my honor to be the host of the Tile Money Podcast. I've got a great guest today, Sam Devine, owner of Devine Tile Works out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're going to get into his background in the installation industry, how he differentiates himself living in a great, robust city such as Minneapolis with lots of talent, how he's built his business, his reputation, and kind of, all about his work. We're also going to talk a little bit about podcasting. Sam is a professional podcaster himself with multiple podcasts, and we'll get into that a little bit, into marketing his business. And you never know what we're going to get into. I'm excited about this show. This is something that I've been meaning to have Sam on for a while. He gives great feedback and great comments and posts inside the Tile Money Facebook group, and I really appreciate his presence there. I do want to thank our sponsors of the show. We've got Happy Tile Guy. If you are in need of a website, happytileguy.com is the place you want to go to. They are focused on organic search engine optimization. And all I hear from Happy Tile Guy contractors is that the websites are driving leads, and you set it up and it just works. And I'm super proud to have a website now. You can check it out, SarasotaTileSolutions.com. So if you are in need of a website, it's like a brick and mortar online. People come in, we can track them, we can collect their information, you can reach out to them and hopefully do business. It is your presence online. Profit Now for Flooring Dealers with Jerry Levinson is a business coach. He helps people buy and sell flooring stores and set up their tile contractor businesses. He's working with several small business owners who don't have brick and mortars, and he's doing a phenomenal job with that. I've heard nothing but good about Jerry. All right, well, let's bring Sam into the studio. All right, Sam.
Hey, Luke.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing real good. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, come on the show and share your knowledge.
Of course.
Appreciate it. You've been giving a lot of good content in the Tile Money Facebook group, and over the years we've had some communication, and something that we've been meaning to do is get together and record a podcast. So I'm excited and happy that we're making this. Let's dive into your background a little bit. How did you get introduced to the tile world? When and where were you?
So my family, my mother's side they were all in plaster and stucco here in Minnesota. They had a big name in that. So it's kind of in my DNA. I actually started a painting company years ago. Did a few jobs for friends, some tile work, did my own tile work. I did at one point work briefly for someone else just for a few months, setting tile, but a lot of it was self-learned, self-taught. But I had a construction company. So my little painting company morphed into a remodeling company that was doing quite well up until the pandemic hit.
Okay.
But the tile work was the one thing that I couldn't sub out, because I was better at it than all of the subs I was subbing to the few times we tried.
Yeah.
And we took on increasingly difficult layouts and increasingly difficult patterns, which is sort of a specialty of mine. And when the construction company kind of died with COVID, the thing that I kept was tile. That's several years. And I've really positioned myself as kind of a specialty tile installer. I pick up jobs that other guys tend to not want. Sort of usually, like, if you're spending $80 to $150 a square foot for tile and you really want someone to be careful with it, I'll get recommended there. If it's handmade tile, I've got good relationships with all the handmade tile manufacturers in the state. We have 3 or 4 of them that are, doing pretty well here.
Yeah.
They recommend me.
Okay.
And then a couple of specialty stores that just know that I like the math side of it, and I like the more complex jobs. I don't tend to slam in a lot of floor tile. That's kind of a different installer than me. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
So you've carved out a niche and created a name for yourself. And it was interesting. You said like a lot of tile installers don't want this type of work. Why do you think that is? I mean, what is it?
I've come in on jobs that guys have walked out of, that especially the handmade tile.
Yeah.
And I get it. It can be frustrating if you're used to using, and no offense to any of your setters out there, everyone's got their spot. Everyone does
Sure.
their thing. And some, man, I have looked up, I love the forums because I've seen some absolutely gorgeous work that
Oh yeah.
is not really my kind of work. It's not the thing that I'm really great at either. But I think, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But the handmade stuff, if you use a lot of spacers and clips and you expect things to be very, very crisp and routine, that handmade tile is not for you. So, guys will start setting it and realize that it's getting off and further off. And they can't figure out how to fix it. And that's sort of the stuff that I love. So,
yeah. Isn't it interesting? I have to agree. I found myself gravitating towards handmade tiles.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I mean, I always enjoyed it, and I'm more of a rustic guy anyways, like I like stone, I like cement tiles, I like handmade tiles. I like the imperfection.
Yeah.
I get it with everything else, but then the other thing that helped me like on my mindset was I came to the same conclusion as you. No, most tile setters hate it. So it's like, if everybody's going left, I might as well go right and lean into this. I don't hate it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I kind of love it because it allows me, it allows for it's forgiving. And in my opinion, it's forgiving. Now, I always thought like, if somebody chooses handmade, whether it's handmade stone or any like, cement tiles, anything
Things
like
with
that.
imperfections. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, let's sit down and have let's have a long conversation here. It's funny. Just today I left, just before this, I went on a consult and the lady had installed these 8x8 cement tiles in her bathroom floor, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And I thought they looked beautiful. It's driving her nuts.
Oh, right.
It's just
right.
driving her nuts. She's like, I can't get the seal right. She's like, the sealer always turns yellow. And I was like, I don't see any yellow, but she just, everything in her house was meticulous. I mean, everything had a spot, everything was just put away. And so tell me about that. Like, how do you kind of warn or vet the client? Like, are you sure you want to do this type of thing? You know what I mean?
So typically I'm not helping them pick their tile.
Okay.
So usually by the time I get there, maybe one of my local shops has referred me.
Yeah.
It looks, it's funny. The floor in my building is quite slanted. So I'm fighting rolling downhill here the whole time. Anyway, if one of the shops has recommended me, if they haven't yet had other contractors in to look at it, that's one thing. But if they've had other people in there who said, hey, look, I don't do this tile, or I don't like this kind of tile, I don't want to do it, they come preloaded with the understanding that this is a little different.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So and oftentimes you're paying a bit extra for that less perfect tile, right?
Yeah.
The manufactured stuff comes out more perfect.
Sure.
So that less perfect tile, when, as an example, one of the big jobs I did last year for their small bathroom, and granted, they wrapped the whole thing in diamond pattern, and it was a very complex installation.
Yeah.
Installation, and it had, the floor, it had shelves and nooks and things all over the place, but they spent $20,000 or $25,000 on the tile alone.
Yeah.
So by the time I get there, I can very easily have that conversation with them and say, look, this tile is different. There are going to be imperfections in this that are part of the character of it. You've spent the money on it for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not an attempt to brag or something, but like on my website, I tell people I'm slow and expensive, and
I noticed
there's a
that.
reason for it.
Yeah.
Like I just want people to know up front.
Yeah.
If it's the type of tile that someone else can do well for less money, I have no problem telling the client that too.
Sure.
But when it's something really complex, like this one that I did last year, I sat in that room for I think 3 or 4 days, making little marks on the wall, measuring everything to figure out just exactly where I wanted to start that tile before I started it. So,
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It speaks to the more artistic side of me, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the process? Like if somebody wanted to make a name for themselves for this type of work, I mean, it sounds like you've went out and did a lot of belly to belly, like networking. And, when you show up to somebody like a tile, a handmade, homemade tile manufacturer, a local person, like we have one here in Sarasota, I was able to, network with her and her husband. Last Saturday, we got we got about 15 of us together and got them invited, and they came and showed us their portfolio and stuff. And what does that conversation look like to get on their top 3?
Sure. I mean, it's kind of multifaceted, right? You have to be able to prove that you're as good as you say you are.
Sure.
Right? That part of it has to exist. I think everyone knows that. It's perfectly clear. But so you can't. I think the tile trades itself, our industry, installation, is a lot like painting, is a lot like carpentry, is a lot like trim work. Sometimes people get into it, they work for someone for 6 months or a year, and then they want to start their own business right away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't begrudge people that. And in fact, I on my other show, the Joe Contractor Show, we purposefully put out the message that we want the kids in the trades. We want more kids in the trades.
Yeah.
Because there just aren't enough. And yet, despite that, a couple of weeks ago, I asked my 15-year-old son what he wanted to do for a living, and he said, "Well, I was thinking about tile." And there was a part of me that said, "No, you're supposed to go to college and be a doctor or something."
Sure.
I took a step back and I said, you know what? Actually, if I were young and starting out in this industry, and I believe this to be true, if you're trying to carve a niche for yourself, find the part of it that you like the most. If installing 6x6 tile is satisfying for you and you enjoy it and you're good at it, there's a place for that. If doing the more complex things, which really I think a lot of that comes down to layout. I work with a few guys that have set with me. Generally, I have a helper who does not want to set tile, kind of, which I think is great. He's a little older than me and he's fantastic. I would recommend finding a helper if you can find one too. What do we call tile helpers these days?
Apprentice.
Apprentice, sure, yeah. But he doesn't even feel like he's an apprentice. I know I was a mason's tender. That's what it was.
Tender's a good one. Yeah.
Tender's a good one. Yeah. But a lot of it comes down to perfecting your layout skills. And that's hard because you have to, before the first tile gets set, kind of think about where the last tile goes.
Sure.
And then lay the room out for that.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true if you're using, 12 by 24 kind of large format tile. You find centers and you can start laying tile and it works, right?
Yeah.
But if you're doing the other stuff, it's a little more complicated. But
yeah.
But then if you get good at it, I would say if your niche is sort of the 6x6, 12 by 24 tile, go ingratiate yourselves to the owners of and the employees of the local stores that provide those tiles. So that's
Mm-hmm.
the supply houses, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the design studios that lie within those, and the showroom floors. Just get to know those people, and they will send work your way.
Yeah.
And the same is true with your local manufacturers that make kind of high-end handmade tile. Find a way to interact with them. Go in and just talk to them and tell them that, this is what I do for a living. I've made a name for myself as this type of a setter. You should bring some examples of your work and be ready to back it up.
Yeah.
But really, it's those personal connections that get you the work, I would say.
Yeah. So true. I love that advice. Find the niche that you love and really focus in on that.
Yeah.
So many of us, go out, start a business, and, it's like, what do? We install tile. Well, what sort of tile? Like, oh, anything. And it's hard. Like, it's hard not to say that, right? Because I'm having this problem myself, and I'm not knocking on anybody, because right now I want any and all tile work I can get. I'm brand new in business, right?
Yep.
But if you can delay the gratification a little bit, I think the reward is bigger if you're like, what, I'm a specialist, I'm an artist. I do the homemade, handmade tiles. I do mosaic work. Or maybe, what you love is knocking big floors out, and and you're really good at it, and you have a method that works well, and you can get a crew together and stuff like that.
That's a real talent too. I mean, there's no good or bad in this.
There's no good or bad. That's the thing. Yep.
Generally, being a generalist is what and I've got a business partner in my other side of my business who is really good at explaining this. But
okay.
But being a generalist is confusing to people looking at you, right? It makes sense to you because you're the business owner and you're saying, I can do any of these things. So just come to me with all of the work, right?
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you come to me? I know how to do it all. But if you plant your flag in the ground a little bit and you tell people what you actually want to do and what you're very good at, the right people will find you. So I think it's important for people to, especially if you're a business owner and you're just starting out, kind of like it's important to wave a banner that says, I do this. Because if you've got 50 banners out there saying, I do a little of everything, it just gets confusing for the consumer.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And at the very least, and this is a lesson I'm still learning, at the very least, if I can give this advice, is find out what you absolutely do not want to do.
That's right. That's a good one too.
Because I like the call I was on today, she wanted me to do a repair. And it's like, all right, I told her my minimum. She's like, oh, that's, 2.5 times what I thought it would cost. And I'm like, I'm sorry, lady, but this is my minimum. Like, I'm not doing any work for under this minimum. And even then, I don't know that I'm a right fit for you. And so I was like, if you want to have a further conversation, I'll come out and look at it.
Yeah.
I went out and looked at it, and right away I knew I wasn't going to be a good fit, and that she was asking for, in her mind, it's simple, but it was like, a lot more work and a lot of more possibility for, it was like I would carry a big liability for things going wrong for not a lot of money.
Those are important lessons learned.
But you know what, Sam? And she kind of like almost insulted me there for a while as we were talking. And I was like, I wanted to get out of there, right? Like, like my monkey brain was like, let's just blow her off and leave.
Yeah.
But then I was like, you know what? I'm here. This lady obviously wants to talk. She was, older, lived alone. So we sat down for 30 to 45 minutes and I let her talk. And I let her talk and I let her talk. And I explained to her why I didn't want to do the repair. Yeah. And I gave her some alternatives, and I gave her some phone numbers. And then before I left, I said, hey, what would you think about leaving me a review on Google? And I got that review, and I'm not going to work for her, but I was nice, and I listened to her and I gave her some advice, and that's what she appreciated the most. And so sometimes we just have to slow down and think, do I really want this? Like, is it really gonna make my life, is it worth the money, And
Yeah,
there's
I
nothing
mean,
wrong with saying no.
I would say to expand on that from my experience too, if there's red flags, those red flags mean something.
Yeah.
Like you'll learn probably the hard way how
Yeah.
to acknowledge when something isn't the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And then another lesson I've learned over the years is that we as business owners tend to bring some element of emotion into the transaction.
Yeah.
I want you to like me. I don't want to disappoint you. And then the homeowners also bring in their own element of emotion, but oftentimes it's anxiety. And so when you went out there, probably what you were getting was her anxiety. And that's what makes you want to run away, because you don't want to swallow someone else's anxiety.
Yeah.
And if you do just sit and talk to people, you oftentimes do end up working through what that anxiety is and why they feel this way about it, and getting them to the point where you can say, well, this is probably the best solution for you is to do this. Here's why.
Yeah.
So and people really do appreciate that. So good for you for hanging out with her and helping her out,
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I was already invested, and I thought I was a couple times I stood up to go, and she just kept talking. And then I sat down. I said, I'm in it. Let's do it right.
Yeah. I have, throughout the years, charged people a fee sometimes for that, a consultation fee.
Yeah.
If I recognize it beforehand, I'll say, I don't have any problem coming out. I've got a lot of knowledge in the industry. I was a builder. Now I do tile exclusively. I can answer your questions, but for my time, it's going to be, $150 an hour. And I'll put something together for you, or whatever it is, right? Whatever hour is worth. And I'll tell you, those people who I've been upfront with like that and who've paid me for that have been super appreciative of the results of that too. So at first I was afraid to even ask for that kind of thing.
Right.
And we as business owners often give up our time. And it's not necessarily the expectation of the client that you give up their time. What they really want is time with you, even if it's paid for, to answer the questions that no one else seems to want to answer for. So,
I mean, how many people in any city, America, are charging for a consult? I bet it's less than 1% of contractors.
Yep.
And so immediately you set the bar here. You set it a lot higher, because all of a sudden you're respecting your time, you're valuing your time.
That's right.
And if they don't hire you, great. You know what I mean? If they don't value a 1 hour, 2 hour consult for $150 to $300, that's fine. But if you're going to give them some deliverables, a written, suggestion, and maybe even some recommendations on who to hire, or at least point them in the right direction, that's something that virtually doesn't exist in this industry. I think
had great results with it too. I'm telling you, the people have been so happy afterward. So,
now, is this normally for like a failed job, like a forensic thing, like you're coming in after a failure, or?
No, it's usually the anxiety that I see people live with for a long time is they want to make a change in a bathroom, whether it's tile or, and they want to preserve some part of it or something.
Yeah.
Or they don't know exactly what direction to head, and they sit on a project for years, and they'll have 2, 3, 4 different people come out who don't charge for their time to come out, who give them kind of mixed, maybe even not great advice, and very varied. So, well, this one guy told me I could just do that, and this other guy told me I could just do this, and when they pay you, they immediately respect your opinion more than all of the free people that they've had out. And now you're getting paid, so you take some of the stress off of yourself, and and you have the ability to say, you know, I'm not the right person for this job. This is not what I do, but here's the people I know who might take this on, but here's what you need to know about it.
Right.
So that you don't get yourself screwed, you know, like anything like that. You don't do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Man, they super appreciate it. So yeah, it's not like I have tons and tons of people calling me for that, but when it does happen, it's good. So
yeah, I mean, where do people turn? You know, if they don't have any years in the construction industry, you know, they don't, you know, they're an office worker, a white collar worker. Like, where do they turn to get trustworthy advice, especially if they've been burnt, which, you know, will typically happen if they've done anything in the trades, hired anybody.
right.
It'll happen, you know, all the time. I had another phone call earlier in the week, and he said, well, you know, they've got around 1,000 square feet of main living floor, and the home is only 5 years old, but it's tenting.
Okay.
And I was able to explain, you know, probably why, even without putting, you know, eyes on it and things of this nature. And he wanted a price. And at the end of the day, you know, it was more than he thought it would be or should be. But I said, call around, you know, and he said, I'm going to call around. And I said, that's great. You know, we'll talk to you on Friday. Because I know two things, you know, nobody's going to give him a price over the phone. You know,
Right.
most contractors won't.
No.
And then will anybody, you know, somebody may or may not come out this week, you know? So by Friday, we'll see if he wants to, you know, go further.
Yep.
But I at least gave him I told him the process. I told him why it tented. I told him that we use uncoupling membranes. I told him, you know, that we offer a lifetime warranty. And I gave him some questions to ask people, you know, to make sure, like, I was like, you don't want to do this again, dude. Like, you don't want this floor to be tenting in another 5 years.
No.
Like, why would you, you know, do that? I mean, so we had that conversation, and I try to approach it as, like, you know, consulting. And I think I'm going to take your advice and make a web page on, you know, consulting. We offer.
So that did on mine too. I made it clear that was an option, you know, and like I said, it doesn't happen all that often, but every now and again I get a call and I say, you know, you maybe looked at my website and kind of what you're asking here sounds a lot more like consulting than it does sort of just your average estimate. You know, I can give you an estimate.
Yeah.
But what you're looking for is a consult, and I can give you a lot better information and kind of take out the competitive part of it. I'm not necessarily coming over there even to get the job. I'm coming over there to give you the information you need to get the job done.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Let's, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about one or more of your podcasts that you've got going. When did you get into podcasting, and how's it going?
I got into it, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I suppose.
Okay.
And I started the Legacy Matters show, and I started it in service just to advertise for a software product that I was attempting to get launched at the time.
Sure.
And it turned into something I absolutely love. We have interviews on that particular show. There's myself and 2 other co-hosts. And we invite people into the studio, it's a comedy club actually that we are lucky enough to record out of.
Yeah.
And we don't do any research on them, and we get to know them as if they're a complete stranger who just walked by the 3 of us as we were sitting there. Right?
Nice. Yeah.
So that one's tons of fun, and our guests generally are the people who recommend future guests.
Okay.
So, you know, we'll reach out to people occasionally, but oftentimes it's referrals like that. I've got the Joe Contractor Show, which I started again in service of software. So I've got an app that we are moving full steam ahead on right now that is actually intended for people like us. I don't know if you use any software to manage the data around your business, but I want something that's sort of Fisher Price simple, I say.
Yeah.
That will tell me a few things about, like, I just want customers, projects, and then subcontractors, because we do have contractors that work in it too. But I need to know certain things about my clients, like their name, the kids' names, the pets' names, things that just make them happy that I know them.
Yeah.
And then I need to know stuff about their projects, like that's unique to each project. And so Joe Contractor, the Joe Contractor show, I love doing that one too. But again, it's in service of that software. And then
what's the name of the software? Is it live? Is it ready to?
Joe Contractor.
Oh, the software is called Joe Contractor as well. Okay.
So it's the Joe Contractor show and the Joe Contractor app. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not live yet. We've got a team of developers. I met with them at 7:00 this morning. We're pushing along. So
sweet.
I hope within the next 3 or 4 months we've got something live that'll come out. I'll ask if I can get invited back on. I'll tell your whole audience about it.
Absolutely. And so that's like a CRM, like a job management software, or
it's exactly that. It's CRM and project management, really light. Just
lightweight,
not expensive, not Builder Trend or Co-Construct or any of these big things that you try and get into. But really lightweight for
simple,
for people like us. I've used some stuff that has way too many features and no one wants to adopt it.
Right.
And they want your whole team in there and they want every vendor in there. And like, I'm not using this,
Yeah.
So this is tailored for people who run their own shows, maybe have, 1 to 5 employees or something like that.
Yeah. That's a great niche, Sam. I like that a lot. I don't know, I guess it was 2012 or something. I downloaded an app that sounds a lot similar to that, and it was very light. And it looked clean. You could you could accept credit cards, you could email the estimate, you could put in information on the customer, and I loved it. It was just really a dream. And then they got bought out like a year or 2 years later, and like they just flooded that thing packed full of features, and all of a sudden it was so hard to use, and oh man, it was crazy. I'm using Kickserve right now, and I still haven't learned it all. I mean, it's fairly light, but it's like, it's still a bit too much, I feel. So
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Software production is, it's a little like construction. You have an idea, you draw a plan up for it, and then someone has to build it.
Yeah.
But it's really complicated too. So
yeah. I've been working with somebody doing some stuff, and it's more on the ad management and ad purchasing and chatbot, like AI chatbots. But there is like a CRM on the back end too that will help with that. But yeah, it's interesting stuff, man. It can be as complicated or as simple as you want to make it.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because people do create little bits of software and then they get ruined by larger companies. So I've seen that over the years as well.
Yeah.
But back to the podcast real quick. So then
absolutely.
I started another one last year because I can't help myself.
Yeah.
With my new business partner on the podcast agency side. And that one's called What About This Idea, which it's an entrepreneurial show. So we just interview people, some of them, quite high level, some of them like us who just start up their own businesses. And we tell stories like this so that I think people learn through these types of things. I know I do.
Yeah.
So, your show, if I were just getting into tile, and I've thought about this over the years, if I could go back 15, 20 years ago, one of the guys who started the construction company with me, he said, maybe we should think about just doing tile.
Yeah.
I would probably do that because to specialize, again, I fell into that kind of general trap, right? So I was good enough at so many aspects of construction that I was able to start up a company and build it up, and it was doing pretty well, but we were so broad, right? And the tile side of it, I like it because it's a well-respected trade. It's getting to be better respected, I would say. The pay is getting better. It should be. I'll just put plug out there for all the tile guys who watch this. Do not lower your prices to get, you can lower them to get work if you have to, I understand, but we do not need to race to the bottom. We do not compete ourselves into obsolescence by, you know, the work we do is skilled. It's important. It is the finishing touch on stuff. We should be paid. We should be paid similarly, or if not the same, as other skilled trades, electricians, plumbers, people who, you know, we don't have a licensure program. I think a plumber and electrician might argue with me a little bit about that, but the work we do is important. So
yeah,
stick with it.
But
amen,
anyway, amen, brother.
Yeah, but now I produce shows for other people. I think, you know, part of the reason, and we talked a little bit about this, but part of the reason that podcasting dovetails into the business ownership side of things is that in today's world, you need to get recognized. People have to see you. They're not necessarily going to hire you just because they saw you.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not a direct one-to-one ratio where like you put out a podcast and now all of a sudden the work's coming in like crazy, you know?
Right.
But if you put out the show, if you put out content, so we clip ours, you know, all of the shows we do, we clip them up into small segments. We put them out in all the usual places.
Yeah.
Which is just sort of necessary. Advertising used to be sort of as simple as whoever bought the biggest ad in the yellow pages won, right?
Yeah.
And the yellow pages mean nothing. So then it turned to, I'm sure half the kids who would watch this are like, what do you mean yellow pages? I don't even know what that is. But then it turned into, okay, I need a great website. And, you know, I know that one of your sponsors is a website producer, and I think they're still important, but a static website, we're getting close to being sort of post website. Like there's so many websites that you can't compete very well in the SEO, in the search engines. So it's still important that you have one. It's like putting a sign up somewhere, you know? But if you want to get talked about out in the digital world anywhere, you got to be in some of the social arenas. And, you know, for tile people, I'd suggest even going as serious as LinkedIn, TikTok, which, you know, I personally can't stand being in these places for too long. But your customers are there. Your clients are there. So if you put out a 30-second clip once a week or once every 2 days or whatever it is, they're gonna remember you when the time comes for them to need the tile work done. So that's the importance of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. You know, it's important to be online and be able to be found easily and be remembered. I mean, that's where I'm going. So next week I'm launching a Sarasota podcast. Called Sarasota Life and Business. And my whole intention is to go interview people. You know, I imagine it's going to be predominantly local business owners to get that networking and referral list coming in, because I've been networking. I joined BNI groups and I've been, you know, networking with business owners. Now, they probably won't remember me until they've seen me at 20, you know, breakfasts. that I'm the tile guy.
They will.
But if
a little bit.
But if I interview them for this podcast and give them some value and get excited about their business and promote them and give them, you know, post them on social media and give them the clip. Hey, here's a clip, put it on your social media, you know, no charge. They're going to remember me because of what I did for them. And
absolutely.
At least that's the goal, you know, and I think it'll work phenomenally because nobody's really doing it. And the people who do, they love it and they stand by it.
That's right. And so again, if I were looking at, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're young or old or whatever, but if I was giving advice to other people in this industry, I would say, you can do what you want with your time, but if you're trying to be a social media influencer or star yourself, go ahead and record yourself all day, every day, and then edit that. But you'll soon find out that that's a business in and of itself. It's to get, and there are a few tile people out there who put out really crazy good videos,
Sure,
time lapse or and highly produced. They look nice, but the end result is more or less that they're growing an audience on these social platforms that they can then monetize by affiliate links or selling products, some sort. It's not going to necessarily get you a ton more customers as a tile installer, right? But don't undervalue. So as a tile installer, take a little short video every now and again, or some better pictures, and just put that content out there consistently. Don't kill yourself trying to become an influencer.
Yeah.
But get it out there so that people remember you, because you're just trying to feed the marketing engine that gets you your clients. And nothing beats word of mouth, and nothing ever will beat word of mouth. But it also helps to get a few fresh clients every now and again, because then you do a great job for them. They tell a different network of people that you've never met. So
I'd have to agree with you there again, Sam, because oftentimes, and I'm not knocking it at all, because obviously I did it myself with Tile Money. I marketed Tile Money for tile contractors, and I wanted to build this brand in my community for tile contractors. But with my tile solutions, I'm marketing for potential customers. I really could care less. I could care less if the tile contractors even follow my page. Sure. Now, maybe the local ones, because I'm networking with them and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I'd rather have the local business owners following it and the local community being able to find it, and create content towards them. Now, and again, I'm not knocking anybody. If somebody wants to be the next, influencer in the tile industry, go for it. And I'm happy to do it. Yeah, I'm happy to give you advice or not. And you can learn a lot, but it's a whole nother animal. It's a whole nother business. And why does it matter to you? Is it just for the ego? Is it just like, all these tile contractors know me, but what did it do for you? Like, what did it do for your bottom line? And how many hours did you put into that 30-second reel,
No, that's right. It takes a long time to build up that business.
And some people love it,
Some people do love it. I've met and had conversations with people who, like, I had to say to them, like, it looks to me like you're not really trying to have a construction company. You're trying to have an influencing company.
Sure.
Like, it's a different thing. And they're like, oh, you're right. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I would say in general, people who do that tend to somewhat lose sight of the quality of their own work, because it's a lot of work to put into the other side of it, the video production side of it, and all of the rest of it. I'm not saying it's bad either. I'm just saying you got to kind of pick which one you're trying to hit. So.
Yeah. That's good advice. And let's see, I was going to say, for content wise, what advice would you give somebody if they're like, okay, if what you and I just talked about made sense to somebody listening, and they're like, all right, like what types of content would be, maybe memorable for the general public, to find a tile contractor on social media?
Yeah, I'm terrible at this myself, really. And I think a lot of us kind of, I'll say middle-aged kind of guys or gals are sort of bad at this. I rarely remember to take a before picture.
Oh, it's the worst. Yeah.
I know, you have to, because I don't really care about it. I saw it. Yeah. Like, I see the before and I'm like, okay, I'll fix this. But potential clients love seeing that transformation from this to that. Yeah. So take the before picture. And then another thing we're not great at is ask the client if you can come back after the job is fully completed, or if their contractor, if they're using one, is going to have pictures taken, or if they themselves are good at taking pictures. Sure. Ask the entire community of people working on it if you can get copies of those pictures when you're done, or if that doesn't work, if you can come back and just take a few.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll tell you, the homeowners recognize the quality and the value of your work as tile contractors. They really, really love tile, and people spend a lot of money on it. So they're usually quite respectful of the work that from what I've found, that we tile installers do. But what happens is I end up with no before picture because I forgot.
Right.
And then I end up with a picture of the completed job with no toilet, no outlet covers, no towel bars, no lighting. It's just me taking a picture of what I think is, hey, look at this nice work I did. It's more compelling when you have someone who takes a picture after the entire thing is completed. And even it's not that expensive to work into your cost, I would say. Someone going out and taking pictures of the project, if you want to do that too. Professional photographers will do it for like $150 or something. So
and I did that on a few jobs, and one of the benefits to doing that is the home, it gives them the warm fuzzies, like, oh,
totally.
the tile contractor's hiring a professional photographer, and he doesn't do it on every job, and that's part of the sale. Part of the whole package is make them feel really good about it.
I'm not encouraging you tile guys to overcharge people. I don't know any rich tile setters yet. I've not met any driving Lamborghinis and hanging out on super yachts or whatever. But I learned this the hard way too. The people I've charged adequately for, the most I've charged, are the most grateful, the happiest clients I've had, the ones who I've charged the least to, the ones who ask for a deal. Well, I thought this was going to be like $500, and you're like, no, 5,000, and somehow or other you end up doing the work for them. They're the least appreciative. I've found that time and time again. So
there's a great meme. It's something like the $500 client, and it's like the text message, all right, your invoice is $500. Well, and the client texts back, well, before we enter this contract, I really want to, get your blood work done and all these things. And this is a real big commitment we're making here, on and on. And then the $50,000 client, your invoice is $50,000, deposit sent.
I mean, this is back when I was doing construction, but I gave someone a bid, and it made me so nervous. It was a $625,000 bid to remodel their entire house, exterior and everything. And I was like, oh my God, this is giving me heartburn. It's such a big contract. And it's taken so much of my time. And we looked it over, and they were like, they barely looked at it for like 15 minutes, maybe, there's a lot of papers. Like, oh yeah, this is great. Sounds good. And then they sat and they wrote me a check for $212,000. Like, oh, okay. Here I was worried about it. Yeah, I mean, it's true that just watch out for people who want a deal, or who think that it should be way lower, and be very appreciative and try and give those people who spent more money the warm fuzzies by getting the pictures taken after. You're right. It does make them feel great. They're proud of their project, and they're happy they hired you because it looks great. So
and then there's the next level of client who makes you sign a waiver that says you will not take photos of the work.
Hey, we'll take those too.
Right.
Pay me to not take pictures.
Yep.
So, I like it. Yeah.
Well, Sam, this has been fun. Really appreciate you sharing some knowledge. Did we miss anything that you wanted to share?
Not that I can think of offhand. I think your show is great. I'm glad to see you're back at it.
Thank you.
I know that I guess one last thing for the guys starting out, like your Facebook, even if you're young and you don't like Facebook, I get it. No one wants to be there. The tile forums that I'm a part of, and you mentioned that at the beginning that I give good comments, and I appreciate you saying that, because listen, 85% of the guys are kind of dicks. It's a tile center thing. It's a construction thing. I get it. I find a little humor in those guys doing that. But there are guys, there are guys like myself, and I know Rob Olson here in Minnesota. I don't know him personally, but he's big in the industry right now, from what I can see.
Yeah.
That will give you really solid, really strong advice, and help you out a lot. So, you can go to YouTube and watch the videos, but you can also go to those forums and learn a lot from some people who've been in it for a long time. So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I like, that's why I joined Facebook, was for the groups. And I find myself searching in the search bar a lot of times if I want a topic, because it's like, I don't always want to start a conversation and spend, a few hours going back and forth. And most of any question you have has already been talked about, like, to death in some of these forums. So the search bars are great. I appreciate you saying that.
I think you've provided a good resource for people. And I know from my end, if anyone ever reaches out to me privately and says, hey, I could use some advice, and they're in Connecticut or something, like, I'm getting on the phone with them and I'm giving them some of my time.
Yeah.
If they're in the industry, because I just don't mind doing that. So
cool. Right on. Well, what's your website? Where can people find you? I mean, obviously you're on Facebook.
Yep. And it's devinetileworks.com. It's that easy.
Devinetileworks.com. Great.
Yep. So there you go.
All right, Luke. Well, thank you, Sam. Tile friends, thank you for listening. If this podcast has assisted you, consider leaving us a review over on iTunes or Spotify. We would appreciate it very much. And share it with another tiler. Don't be stingy out there. Help each other grow. That's how we're all going to lift each other up and kind of raise the expectations and the prices, as if we all kind of work together at this. Stay positive out there. I know things get heavy sometimes, but keep your head up. And above all else, if you're in business, don't forget, stay profitable, tile friends. Over and out.